And I want to start with your predictions because, I mean, dude, like there were a lot of pick'em fights on this card and you nailed every single one of them. And you are not contractually prevented from betting on mixed martial arts. You were not working this show. And had you chosen to place some bets, you'd be a very wealthy man. But you don't bet on MMA. Is that right?
I don't, man. I wish I did, though. I wish it. Well, I got into some trouble in my late teens. While I was in college, I was betting on some NFL games. It didn't go well for me, man. I didn't have a whole lot of money, and I thought I was doing all right. And I started off hot, and then it just went south really quickly. Lost a lot of money on the NFL, and I'm still skittish. I'm still skittish.
So that was like mid to late 90s, Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. So were you like, because see, I started betting on sports in 1997, basically. I mean, I bet in high school through a bookie when I was 14, 15 years old, but I opened an account online when I was 17 years old in college, but I was doing like $10 3-team baseball parlays. I mean, it sounds to me like here you were 18, 19 years old putting like $500 on the Dolphins and getting
I really was. I was going for it. You know me, man. I never do anything half-assed. So yeah.
Well, I love the fact that I asked you last week of all the fights that were close to pick'em that you selected, which man were you most convicted on? And you said Frankie Edgar, and certainly he had the most dominant win. Well, Stipe, of course, but you were very convicted on Frankie, and he certainly made you look like a smart man. We'll get into all that, but I do want to leave with Stipe Miocic and the big win. And when you look now what he has done, Kenny, over the last 5 fights, all of them knockouts, Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovski, Fabricio Werdum, Alistair Overeem, and now Junior Dos Santos, a who's who of elite heavyweights in mixed martial arts, some of those Hall of Fame names. And now here is Stipe, in my opinion, on the strength of this win, really injecting himself into the conversation with some of those other big names as one of the best heavyweights of all time. I'm not saying he's Fedor Emelianenko, but I mean, these wins are starting to pile up. He's 17-2 and pretty incredible to see what he's been able to accomplish here in a few short years.
And time will tell. He might just be the best heavyweight of all time and surpass Fedor Emelianenko. You look at his consistency, the way that he's going out there. Obviously, mixed martial arts has changed a lot. A lot of these heavyweights becoming more and more skilled, a lot more technical. Doesn't matter to Stipe. Stipe went out there and just walked Junior Dos Santos down, almost like he didn't even respect his power. And I think he realizes that Junior Dos Santos, when he's moving forward, is a much more dangerous fighter. He can be creative with his offense. He can let loose on his punches, and he knew that he needed to back him up. And having that threat of the takedown always on the back of Junior Dos Santos' mind, it can shut down your offense even more. So the fact that Stipe was backing him up in the manner that he was backing him up, and letting those combinations fly, man. I mean, it was almost like he didn't care that he was going to get hit. He was moving his head really well. He was feinting really well. His footwork was on point. But that 1-2 combination, that jab cross combo was just way too much for Junior Dos Santos to handle. And the way he was countering with that cross, every time Junior Dos Santos would throw something, he'd throw that cross right down the middle, and he was catching Junior a lot with it. I mean, what an impressive performance from Stipe.
And it's amazing to think that all Stipe wanted to be was a Major League Baseball third baseman, and he could have spent years toiling in the minor leagues, trying to get to AAA on minor league baseball buses in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Podunk, Connecticut, and instead here he is, the consensus baddest man on the planet, now has successfully defended this UFC heavyweight title a couple times, and the confidence really just jumps out of the building. And, I said on the broadcast, he seems to take great pride and responsibility in being the UFC heavyweight champion. But it really all goes back to that first meeting with Dos Santos for me, Kenny. December of 2014, 5-round war. Stipe called it the toughest fight of his career. He got knocked down in that 3rd round. And ever since, he just walks in there as if he's just much better than the other guys. And I think of all the things we can laud about Stipe, I think it really is the inner and the mental confidence and the confidence he has in his team that is allowing him to produce these type of efforts.
It truly was a game changer for him. And you could see it when he walked out against Junior Dos Santos. He was so calm, man. He just looked like it was just a formality that he was walking out there. He was going to walk out there with the belt. It was just a matter of fact. He looked that confident. And it's funny because when I was telling people, I'm going to pick Stipe, they thought I was crazy. They said, isn't that the guy that got stopped by Stefan Struve? And for some reason, I don't know if that's one of the fights that kind of puts that dark cloud over Stipe's name or whatever. But I don't know. He just doesn't get the respect he deserves. And I think with some more fights, he's going to obviously maybe face Cain Velasquez down the line, maybe the winner of Werdum and Overeem. And as he kind of continues on this consistency, I think he's going to get the respect he deserves, because Stipe is a phenomenal fighter, and he's good everywhere. He really is.
Only 2 career losses for Stipe Miocic. The Stefan Struve fight, that was September of 2012. We worked that fight, a main event against Struve in Nottingham, England, and then, of course, the 5-rounder against Junior Dos Santos. So 17-2 for Stipe, 8-time UFC bonus winner. That is the most all-time for a heavyweight, and pretty incredible stuff from Stipe over the weekend. And this is a guy, too, he debuted in the UFC the night you retired. I know you retired a few months later, but UFC 136, October of 2011. And now fast forward 6 years. Some are calling him the greatest heavyweight of all time. Other people's words, not mine. But again, a couple more defenses, and he will be at least the most decorated UFC heavyweight champion on paper. So as we spin it forward, Kenny, it seems to me like the fight that makes the most sense is Cain Velasquez, but you start to hear rumors and rumblings about Velasquez's health or lack thereof, and I'm just not sure Cain's going to be able to make the walk anytime soon. So then you look at other guys, Overeem and Werdum are matched up. That brings me to Francis Ngannou, and I think in a lot of respects it's easy to say that it would be too much too soon for Ngannou. But in this division, Kenny, I mean, help me out. There just aren't a lot of other names, you know? I mean, you got Marcin Tybura fighting Andrei Arlovsky. Those guys don't factor into the mix. You have the Black Beast, and I guess were he to beat Mark Hunt coming up in New Zealand June 10th, I think the Black Beast would be a compelling top contender. But at least right now, I mean, maybe the Werdum Overeem winner gets their rematch for the title, but I don't know, man. I think Francis Ngannou has at least got to be on a short list, even though he's still very much a developing fighter.
He's a possibility. For me, he's option C. We already talked about, obviously, Werdum. Overeem getting it on. Cain Velasquez obviously would be an amazing fight, just because he's such a similar fighter to Stipe. Both of those guys bring it. Both of those guys are never afraid to trade in the pocket. They're very well-rounded, obviously excellent wrestlers. Amazing conditioning. That I think would be a classic for any fan. And I think before Cain retires, I would love to see that fight. Last time I saw Cain, he was at AKA. He was rehabbing, his body. He was taking it easy. He was not sparring. He was basically just giving advice to fighters. And he said, I had the surgery, or I'd be recovering from some kind of injury, and I would come back way too soon. He's like, now I know myself. I'm going to get excited. I'm going to train too hard. So he comes in, does his little rehab. He likes to be around the gym, but he's coming back a lot slower now. He wants to make sure his body is 100%. If his body is 100%, I think that's the fight. Based on what Cain has done, I think he deserves that shot against Stipe. But, if the UFC is concerned about, an injury or a dropout, perhaps they'll go the Overeem and Werdum route. But Francis Ngannou is an amazing talent. Here's the thing with that. I don't want to see Francis move up that quickly. I know he wants a guy like Cain Velasquez, and he's confident that he can win the belt, and he just might. He has the power and speed to pull it off. I just would like to see him develop a little bit more. But as you said, how much do you allow him to develop? The division's just not as deep as it has been.
Right. And as far as Stipe Miocic is concerned, I do think it's going to take a special performance to dethrone him. I don't want to go so far as to say he's a specialist, but he really hasn't been much of an offensive wrestler, Kenny, in the UFC. I think his takedown accuracy is around 38, 39%. As we highlighted on the broadcast, he tried to take JDS down 18 times in that first fight and failed on 17 of those attempts. So I do think that Stipe's offensive aggression at some point in time can be used against him by a heavyweight who has the right tools. So, I think it's a daunting task, but I don't see Stipe necessarily as being unbeatable right now. And, in this division, of course, oftentimes all it takes is one shot. But big weekend for Stipe Miocic. We'll see how the promotion chooses to proceed. I know he's going to take some time off, remodel his kitchen, do all that stuff. But nonetheless, big moment for Stipe, who really has become a superstar. And I think he is owning it as well. We had him on this podcast, and he didn't really bring a whole lot to the table. I'm not going to lie to you. We had him on it our first year on the show, and he didn't have a whole lot to say. Didn't seem like he really wanted to be here. And I think from a media standpoint, he has improved quite a bit. It's not all that natural for him to talk, but I think he has gotten a little bit more verbose, and just happy for a man who's a firefighter and a good family man to have realized all this success and to have gotten all this life-changing money as well, not just the bonus money. This guy's getting pay-per-view points. He's the champion, and